1, 2, 3.
Hello, welcome to Rock the Cash Bar. I'm Ben Mowbray.
And I'm Diane Gallagher.
Every week we pick one song and do a deep dive into the lyrics and explain the different ways they've been interpreted.
We will also discuss how the song connected to us on a personal level, focusing on all the embarrassing details.
Glad to have you here. Enjoy the show.
Hi, everybody. Diane has COVID right now.
Right now.
100%. It's swirling around in your blood. How does it feel?
I'm okay. God, it's so bizarre. Like, I got our test results at like 5 a.m. this morning. I took the test yesterday. Corbin tested positive yesterday. He had gone the day before and got his results yesterday, and he was positive. And he's not doing great. And so I was like, well, shit. Charlie went to school yesterday with the mask on, and he got off the bus, and I was like, we got to go get tested. And so I got me and Charlie's results at 5 a.m. and we both have it. 3 people under one roof with wildly different symptoms.
Yeah. I didn't realize that Charlie had been at school. How does, what happens with that? Like, do you call the teacher?
I tell them, I tell the teacher, I tell the nurse, I tell everybody. Luckily he was wearing a mask and he's asymptomatic. He didn't have a fever or anything. Doesn't mean he can't spread it. So I hope he didn't spread it to anybody.
Yeah.
But now he's home. We had 3-week vacation. Like, we had 2 weeks for Christmas, and then I was like, woo, go to school. And then one day at school, and I'm like, get your ass back in this house.
And you're never leaving it again.
Yeah. Sorry.
I'm sorry you're going through that. I hope you stay asymptomatic. I had an asymptomatic case a couple of months ago, and it's just frustrating because you have to stay inside and you're worried that you've spread it to people. And it's kind of strange because I was quarantined with my girlfriend who has been vaccinated. So she wasn't testing positive, even though we're under separate rooms, but we're under the same roof. It ended up just being frustrating because I kept testing positive for 2 weeks. Like, I just could not.
Oh, really?
Even though I was feeling fine. Yeah. So hopefully, with the vaccines and with the immunity that people are building up, hopefully you guys will be fine. You said Corbin's not doing well, but he's
no, we're both fully vaccinated. We both had our boosters in October, but it just hit us different. Like, he had more of and I have a lot. Everybody has it right now. And I have some friends, all my friends are fully vaccinated. And I have some friends that are just, they had some fever and some chills. One of my friends is getting full blown fever, chills, train wreck, horrible shakes. I have felt like I may be getting allergies a couple times this weekend, and that was it. Some sneezes, a little tickle here, but nothing bad, except for last night. I was washing my hair and I didn't realize until halfway through I was using my favorite shampoo because I love the way it smells. And all of a sudden I was like, I can't smell it. I don't have a sense of smell. And I realized it while I was washing my hair, and I'm not congested or anything, but I was like, oh, that's weird. And then I started immediately going through my pantry. Like, can I taste this? Can I taste this? Like, I can taste pickle juice when I drink it. I got that.
You're just eating hot peppers and flowers.
But Charlie, I keep taking his temperature. I keep monitoring him. He's fine. But Corbin Corbin does 5 minutes of minimal labor, and he's like, I got to sit down. I'm fatigued. He doesn't feel good. Yeah.
How's Charlie handling it mentally? Because it's got to be weird to spend at his age, to spend 2 years hearing about this terrifying disease on the news, have it totally interrupt your life. Yeah. And then step off the bus one day and find out you've got it. That's got to rattle a little fella.
Well, the way he wasn't as rattled because he got his first round of vaccinations 2 weeks ago. And so we told him, we're like, the vaccination, what it does is it works like a cheat code in your body. We told him, it doesn't put a force field around you. You can still get it. But what it does is it tells your body how to fight the virus once, you have your own immune system that fights it. And then the vaccination is because he understands video games. It's a cheat code to help fight it better and faster. And since he's had that vaccination, I was like, look at you, you're not sick. And he doesn't feel bad. And he's like, all right, I'm good to go then, so I think that took away any fear he may have had.
Yeah, encourage him. He's brave. He can handle it. Yeah. He's got his mom's moxie and his dad's courage. He'll be fine. Man, I have a crazy story to tell you.
I'm ready.
I was tending bar over the weekend. It was New Year's weekend, which is always weird.
Yeah.
So I'm tending bar and it's quiet. There's not too many people around, but don't know how to describe him, but there was like this thick-set man with frog eyes who's standing at the door. And there was this little bald guy with wingnut ears who was waiting in the car. And then this dude I know, Robert Moore, passes the frog-eyed man as he walks into the bar, and this chick, Betty Coltrane, just jumps under her table. So I say to Robert Moore, I'm like, what's your pleasure? And I got a face like boiled meat. And he says, well, there's a girl called Betty Coltrane that I've come to see. And I'm thinking fast. I'm like, I haven't seen that girl around here for more than a week, but Betty is hiding under the table, right? Well, then in comes a sailor who's got mermaids tattooed on his arms, followed by the guy with the wingnut ears who was waiting in the car. I could tell that Robert Moore sensed trouble. He'd seen it coming from afar. And Betty Coltrane, she gasps under her table. Well, the sailor said, I'm looking for my wife. They call her Betty Coltrane. And the frog-eyed man said, that can't be. That's my wife's maiden name. And the man with the wingnut ears said, hey, I married her back in Spain. And Betty Coltrane crosses herself beneath the table. Well, Robert Moore steps up and he says, that woman is my wife. And he drew a silver pistol and a wicked Bowie knife. And he shot the man with the wingnut ears straight between the eyes. And Betty Coltrane, she gasped beneath the table. Well, the frog-eyed man jumps at Robert Moore, who stabs him in the chest. And as Mr. Frog-Eyes died, he says, Betty, you're the girl that I love best. As the sailor pulled a razor, Robert blasted him to bits and said, Betty, I know you're under the table. Well, have no fear, said Robert Moore. I don't want to hurt you, for never a woman did I love near half as much as you. You're the blessed sun to me, girl, and you are the sacred moon. And Betty shot his legs out from under the table. Well, Robert Moore falls down heavy with a crash upon the floor, and over to his thrashing body, Betty Coltrane, she did crawl. And she put the gun to the back of his head and pulled the trigger once more and blew his brains out all over the table.
No.
Betty steps up and waves the smoke away. She says, I'm sorry, Mr. Barman, to leave your place this way. And as she emptied out their wallet, she said, I collect my severance pay. And then she winked at me and threw $1 on the table. It was the most fucked up bartending night I have ever had.
I've got to go to Grand Prize more.
You really do. It's an eventful place. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Is that a Nick Cave song?
That is a Nick Cave song. That is.
You know, it's funny. I didn't start catching the rhymes until like a few lines in. You actually had me for a second. And then I was like, oh, it's a poem.
I was hoping you were like going to interrupt me and like fight me on it. Like, oh, come on. That didn't fucking happen.
If it hadn't rhymed so well, I would have been like, this is fucking crazy, Ben.
That song is called The Ballad of Robert Moore and Betty Coltrane. And it's by Nicholas Edward Cave, who's from Australia, from rural Australia. And he might be my favorite songwriter, like my favorite lyricist, because he puts the lyrics first. I was watching or listening to a podcast with Dave Grohl, who I love. He's just like a rock and roll spirit animal, right? And he was talking about how he disdains his lyrics. Like he spends no time on it. They don't mean anything to him. It's like, it's all about the music, which seems to me like, and I'm not a rock and roll guy. I don't know, but it seems to me like that's a bit of a cop out. Do you know what I mean?
I don't like it.
Yeah.
Lyrics mean something to me.
Yeah, but he doesn't. It's like he doesn't want to stand behind it. You know, he'd rather, because he's obviously far more interested in the thrill of writing music and melodies and great big guitar chords and things like that. So the idea of, you know, writing thoughtful lyrics is kind of like, it's not what the cool guitar guys do.
Right.
But Nick Cave starts with the lyrics. Like I was researching and reading about him, and he's just like, I don't have a song until I have the story. Like he does like these very narrative things, you know, like Robert Moore and Betty Coltrane, character driven, you know, setting the mood and setting the scene. Like you can almost smell the rooms that Nick Cave songs take place in. That's what's so lush about it. And he gets this reputation for being very morbid and very depressing or very angry or occasionally you know, misogynistic. He has a whole album called Murder Ballads, for God's sake. So he can be seen as a very murderous and wrathful man. I've never seen that. Like, I discovered him kind of through my movie geekiness when I was a teenager. There was a movie by Wim Wenders called Until the End of the World, and it starred William Hurt. It came out in like 1991, and it was set at the turn of the millennium, like set in 2000. And William Hurt is basically on the run from, it's a weird sci-fi thing. It doesn't really matter, but there was a song on it called Till the End of the World by this guy called Nick Cave, who I'd never heard of before. And he has this big booming baritone, like where Leonard Cohen has that like soft and kind of soulful thing, and Johnny Cash has his freight train leaving the station kind of voice.
Right.
Nick Cave's voice just kind of crackles. It's just a raging river somehow. But the song Till the End of the World just starts off with this almost like a Wild West whorehouse piano kind of banging away. And then just that roar, he just goes, "It was a miracle, I even got out Longwood alive." And then the song kind of careens through this crazy story that's almost a movie to itself. Yeah, the movie geek in me was just like, you're getting two stories in one. Like, you got that great story that you can't make any sense of in the song, and then the movie itself. So that's where I kind of met him and became fascinated with him. So I went out and I bought the most recent album that he'd released at the time. I guess this was like 1997 or 98. Was called The Boatman's Call. And it's really uncharacteristic of Nick Cave's work. The Boatman's Call is a lot of piano ballads, like really restrained musical arrangements and love songs, just very, very tender love songs. But I don't know how to describe them other than that they're the most masculine love songs that I've ever heard, because they're not like wooing you. They're not seductive songs. They're not, it's not Bruce Springsteen crawling up your leg with a rose between his teeth.
I love that visual so much.
It's a very sort of like it's about love and responsibilities and the eternity that you can feel when you're starting something that you can't finish. When a love story is starting, you're just like, well, love lasts forever. Like, no matter what happens with this, these feelings are always going to persist in me. And he addresses that in a way that I've never heard a songwriter address before. Like the idea of a man fully in love and understanding what that means in kind of an unromantic way. Like, he's not talking about lips and hair and it's not girls. I mean, Nick Cave loves the ladies, but he's not singing about boobs and butts. He's singing about the real underlying.
He's almost singing about his own experience with it. He's like, I don't have to even describe her. This is like where my brain is with it. Yeah. I like
exactly. That. And then he's got that voice like Moses. So you're just like, okay, this must be exactly how it is. So for me, the yearning emo 17-year-old I was when I came across him, was just like, you're my guy. Get over here, Uncle Nick, and explain the world to me.
I think that's the difference between you and I. Like, there's this type of music that you and I like, and then, there's everybody else. And I realized it is lyrics based, a lot of it. I mean, a lot of it, I like the dancey new wave stuff, but like when we go back to Morrissey and The Cure and all that stuff, like they have this poetry about it, and they tell these stories, and then they wrap the music around it. And I just think that's where I am. That's what I like.
He creates a whole new world like no other songwriter I've ever come across. And if there's somebody else who can do it better than Nick, please let me know, because I want to fall in love with that guy too.
Yeah,
it's just magical. So we're going to talk about, I was so long trying to decide which song I wanted to do, and it came down to the one that we're going to do, and then another one called There She Goes, My Beautiful World. There She Goes, My Beautiful World might be my favorite Nick Cave song. It's a really rollicking, breakneck pace. I don't know how to describe it. It's like a real sort of like rhythm and blues banger. Like, it's just a real rock and roll anthem. But it's all about songwriting, and it's all about craft. It's all about what it's like to be an artist and expecting the muse to move you. Like, he's almost like raging at the sky, like demanding. Like, there's literally in the chorus, he's just like, send those words down to me.
Oh wow, I'm surprised you didn't pick that one.
I didn't in the end, because it's also like the verses are full of literary references. Like John Wilmot penned his poetry while riddled with a pox and all that kind of stuff.
Speaking of, I'm gonna time out, because Corbin is gonna get mad if I don't say it. He flipped his shit when you said Robert Frost did the
yeah, you called me and told me.
He lost his mind. Or no, you said Rudyard Kipling.
I said Rudyard Kipling, and it's by Robert Frost.
And it's Robert Frost. And I remember, like, when you said it, in my mind I was like, that's not Kipling, that's Frost. But I was like, I'm not gonna call you out.
It's fine.
But I knew Corbin almost, like, I think he had to pull his car over. He was so upset calling me. He's like, Ben preaches about being a literary dude. And he said Rudyard Kipling said that line.
I had to tell him, I was like, I've known Corbin for 30 years. It's like, hey man, I've always been full of shit. It's kind of nice that it's out in the open now.
Sorry to cut you off though. So you didn't want to do that song with all of its literary references.
Yeah, there's just too many chances for me to look like an asshole. And it was just too damn long. So in the end, I chose, this is a song that Nick Cave sings he's got, obviously hundreds and hundreds of songs and dozens of albums to pull from. So among that, there's one song that he plays in almost all of his live shows, and it's called The Mercy Seat. And it's a very threatening, somber, visual, violent, bleak, lovely tune about a man waiting to go to the electric chair.
Whew.
Yeah, this should be cheerful. It'll cheer up.
This is
Come
fun.
on. Follow me through, Diane. It'll be all right.
No, so I'm going to have fun with this. I listened to the song a couple times while driving and I printed out the lyrics, but I made it a point. I was like, this, because I knew what you told me what it was about. And I know that Johnny Cash has covered this and changed it just slightly. So I was like, I'm going to not read the lyrics, and I'm going to, like, I heard the song, but I wasn't listening to the lyrics. I was like, I'm going to go through this in real time with you and just see like what it makes me feel. So I'm kind of excited.
The song has a really fun structure too that we'll talk about as it kind of becomes clear. But the first verse starts off. This is The Mercy Seat by Nick Cave. It starts off with him just kind of speaking, over those clanging chords. And it just says, "It all began when they came and took me from my home and put me on death row, of which I am nearly wholly innocent, And I'll say it again. I am not afraid to die." So this is spooky. We've established the scene pretty quickly. We're very definitely on death row. It's not metaphorical. He's actually there. I love the second line where he says, "Of which," because the tone of his voice, "of which I'm nearly wholly innocent,
This is
so
what I've read is like, this is a line that Johnny Cash changed, I think, because Nick wants it to be like, I mean, not wholly innocent, like, but I think, does Johnny Cash try to say that he is innocent in his version?
Yeah, I think he does, but I think it's just because I just think that Johnny Cash doesn't quite have this. It's gonna be so weird because Johnny Cash is the greatest vocalist of all time, but I think he just kind of missed the phrasing a little bit. Like I think the wording is still leaving it there. Like it's just meant to be, you'd almost needed to be an actor to do the line reading correctly. I think to get the meaning to come across. Like,
got it.
I'm nearly wholly innocent. Like he's obviously like, okay, I did it, but I'm justified.
But yeah, I have my reasons. Yeah,
I got my reasons.
Yeah.
You beat a man to death with a hammer. You did. But then it goes into the second verse. It says, "I began to warm and chill to objects and their fields, a ragged cup, a twisted mop, the face of Jesus in my soup." This is what Nick Cave does better than anybody. Is just laying that foundation and making it visual. Like, I just love that line. "I began to warm and chill to objects and their fields." So it's like he's awaiting his death. So his senses are absolutely heightened.
Yeah.
He's in prison. He doesn't have much to look at. He doesn't have much to read, so he's just like, he begins to warm and chill to objects in their fields. Like you start looking at a cup or a mop or into your bowl of soup and all of a sudden it's the face of Jesus. Like, are you going a little crazy? Are you starting to lose your mind, or are you starting to get this heightened awareness that maybe comes to you as you're sitting there waiting for your pure comeuppance?
Yeah, I imagine what that's like, when you go to prison, maybe for the first time, and that this is your forever home.
Yep.
Not in that cute way that we send animals to their new loving home. This is your forever home, and you realize the things that you're going to see on a daily basis now are the only things you'll ever see again on a daily basis. And so you're just put like weight on every single thing that you see, almost like giving meaning to every single thing that you see.
Yeah, you're trying to suck meaning out of your last moments, your last days, your last weeks, your last months. Like, I've no doubt. So I love the way the song takes its time with that. It goes on to those sinister dinner deals, the meal trolleys, wicked wheels. So obviously he's talking about listening to someone's last supper being delivered. Like, how that must sound. Like, knowing that you're next in line or third in line. That's coming your way too. You can just
hear that squeak too. That
for sure.
That silent squeak. Like, it really. This is really. I mean, this is good. He sets a really good scene.
"A hooked bone rising from my food, and all things are either good or ungood." That's another thing that I love what Nick Cave does. Is he'll just drop in those lines that are just like, he's so good with words that he's terrible with them every now and again, just to remind you how fucking good he can be.
Right.
Like, there's a line in "There She Goes My Beautiful World" where he makes fun of the old joke where he goes, he goes, "I look at you look at me, and deep in our hearts, babe, we know that you weren't much of a muse, but then I weren't much of a poet." So it's like, it's the old joke, he's a poet, he didn't even know it, but he like sticks it in there. It's like,
oh, that's perfect.
So this is where the song structure is kind of interesting, because the first two verses are kind of told in like it's his raw voice. The first is in his speaking voice, and then there's a more like raw voice, and then there's sort of like a disembodied voice of Moses sort of thing that comes into some of the it comes in for the chorus, or like kind of like the bridge or the build to the chorus, and that's what's happening here.
And the mercy seat is awaiting, and I think my head is burning, and in a way I'm yearning to be done with all this measuring of proof, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and anyway I've told the truth, and I'm not afraid to die.
It says, and the mercy seat is waiting, and I think my head is burning, and in a way I'm yearning to be done with all this measuring of proof, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, and anyway I told the truth, and I'm not afraid to die. So kind of the effect is that there's basically two narrators. There's the narrator who's dealing with the fact of life in death row, like the physical fact of life in death row. And then there's the second narrator who's dealing with the metaphysical fact of death in death row.
Imminent
it's like,
death.
he's,
yeah,
like he's coming to terms with himself. And that's the way, like the sounds changes and the voice changes to sort of changes in pitch to sort of change the tone. And I think like me, the listener, I'm affected by that. Like I see the guy sitting slumped in his jail cell, thinking it over, looking at that twisted mop and listening to the Wheaton Meal Trolley's sinister dinner deals. But then you could almost hear like the voice of God moving through him and explaining to him, like, this is what's going to happen to you.
yeah.
This is why it's happened to you. And this is how you're going to have to prepare yourself. Like this is like an absolute split. And I think when you're facing something as difficult as the fucking electric chair, your brain is definitely going to split. This will cheer up. It will.
It's okay. I can be
The
there.
song won't. Yeah.
I do like that there is a back and forth between like him being very present in, his life in prison, and then switching over to future tripping, because how can you not when you're going to face the electric chair? It's not like lethal injection, which I think a lot of guys are like, that's great, but the electric chair, my God, we have old Sparky here in Texas, up here in Huntsville. You can go visit. Like, it was horrifying. Like,
oh, absolutely. Every bit of it. Yeah.
It's pain and torture.
Unspeakably so. And just like the sheer drama that they do it. Like, obviously I've only seen it, depicted in the movies and on the news, of course. But I mean, did you ever read, oh my God, and here we go with literary.
Oh boy, get it right, man.
I know.
Corbin's listening.
I'm not even going to try to do it.
Say what the thing is.
It's the book written by the super famous post-war American novelist about Gary Gilmore. I think I've got that name right. He was the first man executed in the United States after a moratorium. Norman Mailer wrote this book.
Okay.
And there's a description of Gary Gilmore. He was death by firing squad in Utah in those days. Apparently, you could choose electric chair, the way you're going to go, electric chair, lethal injection, or firing squad. He went firing squad because fuck it.
Yeah. Give me your best shooters, please.
Mm-hmm. And they do the spooky thing there, where I guess they line up half a dozen guys. One of them is shooting a blank, and the other 5 are shooting live rounds. And obviously, the thinking behind that is,
so those guys don't know.
Yeah, it gives you psychological cover. You can plausibly tell yourself that you didn't fire the shot, which sounds like a strange thing to do, because if you're volunteering for the firing squad, you probably want to shoot people.
You probably want to kill somebody.
Yeah.
It makes me think
sounds like that's,
if they did that with lethal injection too, like 5 people have a needle, no one knows who's got the juice, and they all just poke like, well, I don't know who did it.
It's like being a prison guard to begin with. Either that's the only industry in your small town, or you're an asshole. That's all there is to it.
I've got some prison guard stories from my uncles who worked at the prisons up north near Sam Houston. Like, I had one uncle that worked there, and he was working there when they banned smoking in prison.
Oh God.
Everything changed because these guys just got really healthy. He's like, all they did all day was work out. And he was like, and I mean, I don't want to waste too much time with the stories, but just a couple, like he was sitting there watching one guy who just put like a mat down and ran in place nonstop for 2 hours, just didn't stop.
Wow.
I like almost didn't break eye contact with them. And then some of the guys, like the pepper spray or chemical, whatever they use when the guys are getting in trouble, like some of them would get they built up a tolerance to it. And so one guy would just open his mouth like just because it
Oh
didn't
my
even
God.
affect him anymore. And he was like, all of us prison guards, we're just like drunk, like we're hungover every day. We're tired. We don't work out like these guys. And they're sitting there at lunch being like, they could take us over at any time.
Yeah.
And they knew it. These guys are strong and now healthy. They don't smoke anymore and they just work out all day. Anyway.
Give them their cigarettes and their drugs. You know what a prison needs? Heroin. Lots and lots of prisoners on heroin.
Yes.
That'll be peaceful. Mm-hmm.
It'd be so easy to do your job. You're just like, everybody go night night.
Time for everyone's injections.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna put on some Bowie and we're gonna relax.
I'm in prison now.
So this one kind of continues on. It goes, interpret signs and catalog, a blackened tooth, a scarlet fog. I like that comparison because he could very well have a blackened tooth, not very healthy. There's violence and everything, but what's a scarlet fog? You know, it's like there's real world and other world all in one sentence. And in a way, I'm yearning to be done with all this measuring of proof, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. In any way, I told the truth, and I'm not afraid to die. Oh no, sorry. I hear stories from the manger. This is the Moses voice. I hear stories from the manger, how Christ was born into. I hear stories from the chamber, how Christ was born into a manger, and like some ragged stranger, died upon the cross. And might I say, it seems so fitting in his way. He was a carpenter by trade, or at least that's what I'm told. So we're getting the religious imagery. Like this guy is making his way towards death, and he's looking for a savior.
Yeah.
But then he starts making the excuses, and this is where the song gets really good and fascinating, because this is like the real world in the cell voice says, like my good hand tattooed evil across its brother's fist, that filthy five, they did nothing to challenge or resist. That's always resonated with me because I behave badly sometimes. And then I forgive myself by saying, oh, that wasn't the real me. That was Ben when he's drinking, or that was Ben when he's in a mood. You know, like there are days where, I'll smoke a whole pack of cigarettes, then still act like, no, I'm just chewing gum and vaping. Everything's fine. Right. You know what I mean? Like, do you ever make excuses for yourself? Like you recognize it as bad behavior, but you're able to forgive yourself. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think everybody does. We try to compartmentalize ourselves, because when you come out of it and then you look at what your actions and shame, you're like, well, obviously I'm feeling shame for that action. So that's not who I am, Yeah. But it was.
but you can do it. Like that's inside you. And obviously like the electric chair in death row is a hell of a way to heighten that dramatically.
Yeah.
But that's why I love these Nick Cave songs. No matter how dramatic they get, no matter how romantic they get, no matter how ridiculous they get, they're still rooted in very, very real, relatable feelings.
Right.
I've never killed anybody. I've never been on death row, but I understand what it's like to look back at your own actions and go, what in the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, how ever am I going to forgive myself for that? How can I expect others to do that? Can I still continue being the same person knowing I've done something like that? Right. And I think that's what he's coming to grips with there. And it's a great way to say it. Like my good hand tattooed evil across its brother's fist.
I like that. It took me a second to get that, because I was being so literal and thinking I was like, what's his brother have to do with this? I was like, no, the brother to his other hand. I get it. Like the good versus evil. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's the cartoons. It's the angel and the devil on your shoulder. It's just like I was listening to the devil. Where the fuck were you, angel? You did nothing.
Yeah.
Like, in heaven, his throne is made of gold. The ark of his testament is stowed, a throne from which I'm told all history does unfold. But down here, it's made of wooden wire, and my body is on fire, and God is never far away. So the moment's getting closer. The creepy tension is building. Into the mercy seat I climb. My head is shaved, my head is wired, and like a moth that tries to enter the bright eye. So I go shuffling out of life just to hide in death a while. And anyway, I never lied. So he's bargaining now, I go shuffling out of life just to hide in death a while.
You have to be bargaining at that point. You have to. I mean,
he doesn't think that he's dying. Like, dying is not a permanent state in that sentence. Like, he's going to hide in death a while. He's going to be back. And he also never lied. My kill hand is called evil. Wears a wedding band. That's good. It is a long suffering shackle, collaring all that devil blood. So there he is making the excuse for himself again. He's done something to land him in death row. You know, he's denying it. He's saying that he's never lied, that he's not afraid of it. But here he is, basically telling the world, like, okay, I did this evil thing, but there's still a good part of me. You know, there's still like it wears a wedding band that's good, and it was the law. Like he was trying to hold back all that devil blood all this time. You know?
Yeah, he's trying to like separate himself from the sociopaths. Like he's like, I have remorse, you know, like that, which is different from like the cold-blooded killers who just, you know, you can see it in their eyes, they never had remorse.
Yeah, I'm sure there are plenty of killers and criminals that are sitting in prisons all over the world. They're thinking to themselves something like, yeah, that was my worst day though. You know?
Yeah.
I don't think it's fair to judge me by my worst day.
Yeah.
You want to be judged by your worst day? No, you don't. I do that all the time. Not with my murders.
Not with my murders. Not to dumb this down, but I'm like, I wonder if they give you like an enema the day before your electrocution. I mean, I just imagine, what is it, the Green Mile? Like when you're walking and you see the chair and they sit you in it, like my anxiety symptom is diarrhea. Like, and I'd be like, hold on, I have to go to the bathroom, or it's just going to be everywhere.
I'm pretty sure they wouldn't have to electrocute me. I think my heart would stop as soon as they brought me into the room. They're like, nature's going to take care of this one on its own.
Oh God, it's so horrid. I mean, and I get it. Like if there was like a horrible murder of someone like beaten and like just horrible, gruesome murder, like kind of, you know, as the, you know, family of a victim or something, you kind of be like, you know, torture him, get him good. But it's still, woof. That is a rough way to go out.
Yeah, it's an absolute nightmare, and it's definitely something that should be considered the whole way through. I don't know, honestly. And again, I don't want to talk about the song, not the death penalty in general.
Yeah.
But I really don't know how I feel about it. Like it's not an issue that I've got strong opinions about. You know, it certainly seems it's heartbreaking and it's terrifying.
Mm-hmm.
I've no doubt that it's been misapplied many times. I'm certain that there are innocent men sitting on death row even now.
Right.
I'm still not sure that it's a bad idea.
I flip-flop all the time. I mean, I always think about like if someone like brutally murdered and tortured or hurt someone I loved, I'd want them to die. But also there's a part of me that's like, because I'm not religious and I don't know what happens after we die, I'm like, don't give them the easy way out. They just get to get out. And so like, I don't believe in hell. So I don't believe in the more torture. And so part of me is just like, no, let them live out their years not free. That's torture to me. But then you see some of these prisons, you know, they can better themselves and read and go to the library and maybe manipulate other people and still find joy in their life. Or I'm like, well, I don't want them to have joy either. So who knows? I don't know. I'm like solitary confinement until they die, you know, like I like that. To me, I'm like, they need to just not have joy anymore.
Yeah, it's hard. How do you find a balance between the
based on the
rehabilitation?
crime?
Yeah. But there's the rehabilitation that I think all good-hearted people know that prisoners and convicts need, and then there's the punishment that all good-hearted people know that the families of victims need. And how do you square that circle?
The sociopaths,
better men than me to decide.
Yeah, I mean the sociopaths that never show, like the ones that are truly mentally ill, and they found joy in their killing and all that stuff. You know, part of you is just like, can we just narrow it down on an individual basis? You know, but you can't do that. So yeah, it's a problem that'll never be solved. It's got too many variables.
That's sort of where the song ends. It repeats its chorus about 9 times, like, and it keeps getting louder and building towards a crescendo. But he very subtly changes certain lyrics within the chorus. I noticed very that. Gradually. These are
the lyrics to this song. Typed out.
You're watching on forever.
I was like, holy shit, Ben.
Yeah, we're not going to read the chorus 9 times, but we will read it one more time. And the mercy seat is burning, and I think my head is flowing. And in a way, I'm hoping to be done with all this weighing up of proof, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And I've got nothing left to lose, and I'm not afraid to die. So he keeps subtly changing it from one of the verses ends with, and anyway, there was no proof and nor a motive why. So he's obviously still looking for excuses. And but finally at the very end of the song, and anyway, I told the truth, but I'm afraid I told a lie, which is fascinating to me, like the way that he chooses to do it, because I think there's like the easier, sort of more obvious way where maybe at the end of the song he confesses that either he confesses fully that he did lie, or he confesses that he, after all of this, I'm not afraid to die, I'm not afraid to die. If he says, but I'm afraid to die, Nick Cave makes the more complex choice where he's not afraid to die. He's afraid he may have told a lie. It's like he's afraid, after all of this being split into two and all of this not knowing what's going to happen to him and all of being victimized by his kill hand, he's afraid that somewhere in all that confusion, the good man in him that's been insisting through the entire song that he's never lied, he's not afraid. He's just like, I'm afraid I may have lied. Like, I don't know. I don't know myself as well as I thought I did. Like, even as he's going to the electric chair, like you would think that you'll have this epiphany, you'll be able to get yourself all together and you'll be able to meet death with some kind of heroism in you. And he's looking at it just like, I don't know myself well enough to know if I'm doing that. And to me, that just makes this guy just such an incredible character and just a great song.
So good.
That's why I love him. Did you, how did you feel? I feel like I kind of like, there's people who respond to Nick Cave immediately and go, I really like that guy. And then there's other people that's like, you're definitely forcing him on people. Like, he is so not for everybody. How did you feel about it?
I feel like it's one of those things, I need to hear more songs, because I think if you throw this song on someone with its tempo and its creepiness and something, like, to a generally happy person that likes pop, it's not going to hit them at all. Like, it's going to be like, get that the fuck away from me. Like, they're not going to like that. But I like singers, songwriters that have range. Like you said, he has like some like upbeat tempo songs, and he has love songs, and he has pretty songs, and he has this. And I was just like, yes, I like an artist that can show me all these different levels of what they can do. Like, I think that's why I love The Cure so much, because I think he does that. He has these dark, pull you down below the mud, like feeling songs, and then he's got Love Cats, you know? So yeah, I feel like, if as a listener, if someone who's never heard Nick Cave and they hear this song first, they're gonna be like, yeah, that's not for me. But do you think like this song encapsulates him?
Yeah, I think it's a really good representative of what he does best as a songwriter. You know, he's always reminded me of a more, like, less of a songwriter and more like the Brothers Grimm or Hans Christian Andersen, or like, just like folk tales, fairy tales, even the stories from the Bible, you know, like King Solomon cutting babies in half, you know, Abraham sacrificing sons, you know, all these things are very brutal, but they're part of human history. And it's almost arrogant of a guy like Nick Cave to, like, he probably doesn't, you know, he's not thinking to himself like, I'm going to go down as the Brothers Grimm or or the Bible, but he's obviously like trying to reach into that territory and write modern folk tales. And that's
anybody
really
who's into literature and lyrics is gonna be intrigued by this. Like, people who just want to shake their booty to some pop music, this is going to be like, what? What
is happening here? And the idea that you have to pay attention to the lyrics of a song so that you understand a full narrative story is another way that he grabs you. That, you know, other songwriters talk about how you want the lyrics to be as opaque or as vague as possible so that as many people can relate to it. And there's a guy like Nick Cave out here just like, no, specificity. Like, this is specifically what's happening. That's what I'm fascinated by.
No, there's no interpreting this for yourself here. I'm telling you a very specific story.
It's right out there. Nick Cave had a wild life too. Like, he's from Australia, but he's from like the rural, way out in the middle of nowhere Australia. So he moves to Melbourne with his school friends, and they start a band called the Boys Next Door. And this is kind of in the this is like the late 70s, so it's the early punk, but punk is already fading out for these guys as well. You know, like, that's a flash in the pan. These guys are in the club, so they're looking for something different. And so they start writing these really like confrontational, you know, punk songs, but they're also, you know, like songs about murder and raw sexuality. And they're just the most antagonistic shows that you could possibly imagine. Like, these are young, brash Australian dudes that are like trying to they're doing the Iggy Pop thing, but they're taking it way to the next level, you know, like over the punk din. So there'd be whole shows where young Nick would just jump off the stage and he'd just be in the audience fighting guys, confronting people, doing like, not the G.G. Allen.
I was gonna say, we're crossing into G.G. Allen territory. He didn't shit on anybody, right?
Oh no. But I mean, like super confrontational. Obviously, like the rendering of garments and the tearing of clothes and everything like that. The Boys Next Door kind of turned into the birthday party around the time that this gang of Australian dudes moves to London, and they show up in London around the time that like AC/DC is setting London on fire.
Oh,
So they're this big Australian rock band that are like just the undeniable sound. I mean, the licks that AC/DC could put out. Can you imagine being in a small club with like 300 people and you're hearing that for the first time?
no,
Like,
it's incredible.
I mean, just insane. So AC/DC were sort of like the unquestioned kings of this corner of the London music world at this period in time. And that's where Nick Cave starts drawing from some of their power. Like, okay, if these Australian guys can find their own thing and conquer this part of the world, then so can I, damn it.
Yeah.
So he forms the Birthday Party, which is even more kind of weirder and art rockier and more gothic than
I love
even
that
the Boys
name
Next
for a
Door.
band like that.
Yeah, it's miserable. The Birthday Party ends up going over to West Berlin, which was a real hotbed of creativity and just a legendary place at that time. So before the Berlin Wall had fallen.
Right.
So this was definitely like the thing to do. And this was shortly after Bowie and Iggy, about probably what, like 5 or 9 years after Iggy and Bowie had been over there for their legendary Renaissance. So I think the Bad Seeds went over there hoping to find something like that, but they were hoping to find it kind of even further underground because they're hanging out with a real like German art rock crowd. And it's where they meet this guitarist named Blexa Barhelt. And he joins the Birthday Party, and they change their name to Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and that's where that's where things really start to take off for them because they start writing really, really strange songs. There's a great song called "From Her to Eternity" on their first album. That's it just starts off with Nick Cave just going, "I want to tell you about a girl," and then the crescendo just kind of drops in immediately. And he's just singing. It's this desperate song about a guy alone in his apartment singing about how much he longs for the girl right upstairs.
Oh, wow.
It's just,
nice.
It's creepy but fun. But it
nice.
was just it's.
So wait, what changes? Is he the primary songwriter, or adding this new guy? Does this guy help write? Like, why is there a change in the music?
It's kind of strange because Nick Cave won't write songs, like we said before. He starts with the lyrics and that's it. That's all. So when he comes in with the lyrics, he also kind of comes in with his ideas for a soundscape. He's sort of always had an idea guy. For a certain period of time, the musical ideas or the musical execution were done by Blixa Bargeld. And then lately in the last maybe 15 or 20 years, he's been working with a guy named Warren Ellis. Have you ever seen the movie The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford? The Brad Pitt movie.
No,
it's a great movie, and Nick Cave has he and Warren Ellis wrote the soundtrack to it, which is fantastic. Like I put that soundtrack on all the time, like if I'm cleaning or messing around or writing or something like that. I love it. But Nick Cave also pops up briefly after. There's no sense in giving away the end of the movie because it's in the title, but after the coward Robert Ford has assassinated Jesse James, Nick Cave is like this Bowery guitarist blues singer wandering through a bar singing a song about the coward who killed Jesse James. And it's just the most bizarre because he looks absolutely at home in the American West.
Really?
Like, it's not
nice.
Yeah, like, could you imagine like Elvis Costello or Leonard Cohen or somebody being asked to like here put on this duster jacket and this cow? Like, it's not gonna work.
Leonard Cohen, maybe, not Elvis Costello.
No. It'll never work out. But I love he's written you have to, when you're talking about Nick Cave, you're talking about a full artist. Like the guy is a singer-songwriter without peer. He is also a novelist. He's written 2 books. He wrote one called And the Ass Saw the Angel, which is absolutely fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's written kind of in this real Southern Gothic, like backwoods Arkansas town. It's written from the point of view of a killer who's also differently abled. He's mute. You know, he's mentally retarded, for lack of a better word, and also mute. But he's also a complete psychopath. But the novel is just entirely his internal monologue, and it's all written in Nick Cave's stylistic idea of what the American Southern accent sounds like.
Oh, nice.
So my is always spelled "muh." You know, my heart, or I came my mother was a piss-eyed hellbag and I came screaming from her. Like, it's just
very Sling Blade.
Really Sling Blade. Yeah, crazy Sling Blade. It wouldn't surprise me at all if Billy Bob Thornton hadn't run across And the Ass Saw the Angel, because And the Ass Saw the Angel came first. But then he wrote another book many years later called the Death of Bunny Monroe. and it's a very, very strange book about a salesman who's being pursued by like beings from another dimension, like beings who have been sent from hell to come get this alcoholic salesman. And it's just
what's their motive?
Yeah. He's just been so basically evil that the ground has opened up and the devil has sent someone to come collect one of his own. It's just
there
bizarre.
You go.
But then he's also written screenplays. Have you ever seen what's it called? It's a Tom Hardy movie with Shia, The Proposition. No, excuse me, Lawless.
No.
Lawless is the name of this movie. It's set in like Virginia in the 30s, and Tom Hardy is like a rum runner. Not a rum runner, but the precursor to NASCAR. The guy who's with the buggies. He's got a whiskey still up high in the Kentucky mountains.
Like the moonshine guy?
Moonshine gang. There we go. I couldn't find the word moonshine somewhere in my muddled brain.
Yeah.
Thank you. He wrote the screenplay for that. He wrote the screenplay for a movie called The Proposition, which is an Australian Western, which is absolutely fascinating because like it's really strange to think about how Australian history mirrors American history.
I always think of Australia as Texas.
Yeah, you can certainly, like I said, like sun blistered tough guys everywhere.
Yeah.
The railroads moving into town. We got problems with the engines.
The country folk versus the city folk, and it's just huge like that, where like the city folks are all around the edge, and then in the middle you got country.
If you can stand the relentless bloodshed and murder, I highly suggest watching The Proposition because it's an excellent movie. But it is bleak, full of murder, and horrible the whole way through. But you can't talk about Nick Cave's screenwriting career without talking about the greatest unproduced screenplay that it'll never be produced.
Oh.
Nick Cave is friends with Russell Crowe.
All right.
Russell Crowe came to Nick Cave and said, I want you to write a sequel to Gladiator. And Nick Cave said, okay, but Gladiator dies at the end of that. Like he's dead. And Russell Crowe just gives him that Australian smile and pat on the back, like, you'll figure it out, mate.
Okay. That's so weird when someone comes at you with like a basic premise not thought out and be like, you flesh the rest out.
Yeah. So Nick Cave goes to his office and he starts writing Gladiator 2. And he's faced with the problem, like, how do I bring the Gladiator back to life? So, okay, the Gladiator's dead. So he's in Elysium with all the old Roman gods, like the multiple Roman gods.
I was going to say, this
like
has to be like a hell version or something.
Yeah, sure. It's Mars, the god of war, and Neptune and all those guys and everything like that. But these guys are dying off. Like they're disappearing because there's this dude, Jesus, who was around a couple of 100 years ago, who has started this religion that's just catching fire. Like all of humanity is converting to Christianity and the old gods are dying off. So the old gods decide to send Gladiator back into the human world to kill Christians.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You mean they didn't make this movie?
They didn't make this movie for some reason. I don't know.
I want to see this movie.
I want to see this movie too, really bad. Apparently, Nick Cave took it to Russell Crowe, and Russell Crowe read it, and of course called him up, just like, "We're never gonna make that, man. Never gonna make that fucking movie." But
the only way it would be allowed is if the Christians beat the Gladiator in the end. That's the only way it would be allowed. Jesus has to cut the Gladiator's head off in some way.
That's why I've always found Nick Cave more entertaining than Morose, because he writes these songs that are absolutely ridiculous. Like they get up to levels of drama that are crazy. Like a bar room full of dudes murdering each other, and then a woman just throwing $1 on the table, winking and walking away. Or he's got a song called "The Curse of Milhaven." It's all about this like 13-year-old girl who's incredibly pretty, but also is an unbelievable psychopath who murders hundreds of people in her small little town.
I love how they're all like murderers, like psychopath murderers.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. He writes great tender love songs too. But the thing about his crazy songs, the songs that he's most known for, if you ever, and listeners, if you're out there too, if you're ever in a bar that has like the digital internet jukebox that can get any song in the world, play O'Malley's Bar by Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds, and then play the game, like how long the bartender lets it go before just coming over and unplugging that fucking jukebox, because they will. It's 14 minutes long.
Oh, it's long.
It's repetitive. It's graphic murder over and over and over and over again. It's just brutal. Like the whole point of that song is to brutalize the listener. Just
Oh
to beat you
God,
into submission.
torture.
It's my favorite thing to play that because nobody ever gets to the end. Somebody always comes over and just like, nope, done. I'd rather sit in silence than listen to this shit any longer. But what I like about him is how like his songs are so ridiculous, but they demand to be taken seriously. You know, like they're obviously fanciful and they're obviously way over the top. But with his voice and the soundscapes that he creates, like he's making you take this seriously, and that makes it hilarious.
Nice.
You know,
Yeah.
like I listen to, especially his love songs. Like I imagine him like as if he's like my best friend. It's like, she seems like a nice girl. Nick, where did you meet her? I found her on a night of fire and noise.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
Oh, here we go again, Nick.
Okay.
That's
Why did I ask?
Bad seeds and why I love them. I think you did fantastic. You made it through. This was a difficult episode for you.
No,
I'm proud of you.
I'm a fan. We have no cut to of 6 degrees. I think Jeremy was working on it, but he got slapped with like a really busy week and he apologized. He can't start whatever this new segment is. It's not going to start yet. Well, I was going to say, what's the song that everybody knows by Nick Cage from, I said Nick Cage, like Nicolas Cage, you know, he's got an album. The song from Natural Born Killers.
No, there's a song from Peaky Blinders is the big one right now.
Oh, really?
It's called Red Right Hand. And hidden in his coat is a red right hand.
A red right hand. That's not in Natural Born Killers or another show? An old one?
I don't think he has a song on the Natural Born Killers soundtrack. I could be wrong about that. But the other song that the people, I was kind of surprised that people stumble into Nick Cave through. He's got a song on the Shrek soundtrack.
Oh God. Which one? What song?
it's a Nick Cave song. It was on the Boatman's Call. It's called People They Ain't No Good. And it's typically somber, but I mean it's just like it's all about all the reasons why people ain't no good.
Okay.
And I think as Shrek is moping around the swamp, he's listening to Nick Cave. I was just like, oh, that's great. Let's get some 8-year-olds involved in this.
There you go. That's good. That's perfect. No, that was good. I'm really happy that we finally got to get into. Would you say Nick Cave is one of your favorites? Like
for sure. Yep,
okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, is it higher than REM? Like I'm trying, or U2?
No, it's not higher. It's not higher than REM or U2, but it's a little more intimate to me because I think he was one of the first guys that I sort of latched onto and went, okay, you're my guy. Yeah. Like I don't know anybody, like obviously he's got fans all over the world, but I didn't know anybody else around me who was like really into Nick Cave. So that kind of like I was definitely adopting him as part of my identity because I wanted to be a smoldering literary genius too.
Yeah, for sure. That's fun. I was going to tell you, we drew my friend Josh Hall his name for this month for January's Patreon, and I was talking to him and he was like, I should make you guys do a song by the Doors because he knows I don't like them. And what's funny is I was like, you know what? Honestly, I don't think the songs are that bad. I'm just not a fan of Jim Morrison. Ray Manzarek's great. I mean, it wouldn't be that bad and I would do it, but I think he's leaning towards a Morrissey song. So I think we've got that coming in our future.
We can do that.
Yeah.
That's the weird thing about Jim Morrison. It's almost like we all sort of collectively outgrew him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he was this drunken, druggy sexaholic. We're like, oh, that's real cool. Then we just all sort of gradually realized like, oh, those guys are always awful.
No,
always.
That's the guy that you're just like, oh, he's here. I don't want to hang out with him. God, the ego and the like, no. Yeah.
It doesn't matter how good you look in leather pants. You're just no fun to talk to.
Yeah, you're just, I mean, we got to babysit now. Yeah. You're just a lot, you're just a lot, Jim. You really do grow out of those people fast. They come on strong and interesting, and then you're like, okay, that's enough. That's enough.
Hey, we got our 100th episode coming up.
We do next week. Does it feel like we've done 100 episodes to you?
No, it absolutely
wild.
Doesn't. It's crazy to think that we did 100, and we did it. Well, I guess it's been a little over a year, but
it's too. Yeah, I mean, we started in early March of 2020, like at the beginning of the pandemic.
So we're coming up on 2. That's not bad.
Isn't that crazy?
Not too bad.
And I don't know how you're feeling, but I'm still going strong. Like I'm like, let's do another 100. Like This is great.
I'm ready to go again. We've got a fun episode planned for the 100th, but it's going to take some doing, and that doing has not been done yet.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try. We'll see if it happens. If it doesn't, then we're gonna bring in somebody to basically let the air out of my pretentious ass.
Yeah. We have two ideas. We have a plan and a backup plan.
Yeah, we're gonna if plan A doesn't work, plan B is bringing in the guy who gets my goat like no other. Knock the wind out of me. This will be fun.
Yeah. And so we're not going to tell them what the second idea is, because I think we can save it for sure for another episode. So I don't want to give away any of the surprises. So surprise party for our 100th episode next week.
And we'll be doing both of these episodes at some point. I mean,
Yes.
they're both really good ideas. It's just a matter of which one we can pull off in the right length of time.
Yes.
But we did it.
Well,
Thank you for listening to me talk about Nick Cave.
I'm so glad we finally got to let you do it. We got a new Patreon member. So I think I'm just going to keep pushing that, you guys. If you want us to cover a song of your choosing, just join our Patreon. It's $5 a month and you can support the podcast, especially if you guys are listening every week. That'd be great. Or keep listening for free. It's fine. I'm just glad you're here. What I want you guys to do more than anything in the world in 2022 is share us with a friend. Tell a friend, share the episode. That would help us out a lot. So, all right. Thank you so much. I have to pee so bad.
Go, go, go.
And
Vogue.
1, 2, 3.
Rock the Cash Bar is produced by Diane Gallagher, music by Chuck Savage and Eddie Hawkins. Special thank you to Jeremy Essig for 6 Degrees of Tommy Stinson and to Sara Wessling for the Guilty Pleasures vocals. Our website is rockthecashbarpodcast.com, and there you can find links to our Spotify playlist and to our Patreon. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.